Hello, my name is Toby C. Beans. Welcome to Embracing Vulnerabilities, the show where I just turn on a camera and embrace my vulnerabilities for as long as the camera's on. I'm gonna read a piece that I wrote to you today. I'm gonna just get straight into it. Lately, I've been struggling with feeling unloved. Abandonment trauma is something I'm expected to have as an adopted child, but that was never me. I was adopted at birth and was always incredibly wanted by my adoptive mother. It was an open adoption, and I was raised understanding that I was an adopted child. Though I may not have always understood it, it was never a secret. As I got older, I began to understand more and more about the situation. My biological mother was a 15-year-old girl, and my biological father was a 22-year-old man. They had met at a carnival. As a child, I always understood that my biological mother, simply a child herself, was faced with difficult feelings and a massive trauma when she was faced with a decision to give me up for adoption. I had never blamed her. Actually, for much of my childhood, I had blamed sex. I understood that sex had made me, and that sex that made me was bad, so I never wanted anything to do with it. I think this likely contributed to my disinterest in the discussion of sex and my inevitable lack of knowledge on the topic as a whole. So what changed? I'm an adult now, 28 years old. I have 4 cats and a dog. I'm an honors student pursuing my Bachelor's of the Art in Psychology. I'm a member of the American Psychological Association, and I have a plan to change the world. I'm a far different person than who I was when I was a child. As a survivor of sexual assault, I think I view this situation a lot differently now. I understand even more why she gave me away, and why it was such a difficult time for her. Regardless of my understanding, it pains me to think of her and fills me with a rage I never had before. I feel this with both my biological parents. This rage intensifies and turns into something I can only describe as anguish or agony. What happened? Sometime last year, I was invited on a vacation with my biological mother and 3 of her children. This was among the first times I was genuinely permitted to spend any substantial time with my siblings. I desperately wanted to connect with them, but as an autistic individual, I did not know how. Still, I tried my absolute best. I was on my best behavior and even tried to share important parts of my life. I had told them about my recent history, which is primarily trauma. I wanted them to understand who I was and where I've been this entire time. I tried to be as respectful as I could be, trying hard to pay my own way for everything and be grateful that I was permitted the opportunity to go on this vacation with her, even if I had to ride in the trunk the entire time. She, however, was not on her best behavior. I watched her bark at a grown man in a parking lot over a parking space he had paid for, and then later, when she saw him again, she asked him, in front of his family, if he knew he was an N-word, hard R. The man was Caucasian. The entire trip seemed very last second and hardly planned, and the entire time her behaviors were beyond comprehension. The last day, she ended up screaming in my face and trying to force me to have a seizure, going as far as to even tell me to seize while screaming in my face that she was going to leave me in Tennessee. I wasn't going to take any chances, and given my seizure condition, I was not going to let her put me into such a medically vulnerable position in an unfamiliar state. I had a friend come and get me so that I could take a plane home. Given all of this, why does it absolutely destroy me every time she's apologized for her part? After much deep thought and meditation, I've come to reveal resentment. My needs in childhood were often neglected dramatically. I developed many maladaptive views as a result. I was shamed regularly, told I wasn't good enough, called a monster, a brat, ungrateful, whore, slut, all by close family members. My sense of self was torn down over and over and over again. Despite all of that, these last 4 years I have put an awful lot of hard work into myself. I am a leader, I am kind, inspirational, strong, creative, funny. It's a privilege to know me. I'm not like anyone else you're ever going to meet. That's where the resentment comes in. I was a child the entire time, and I have a neurodevelopmental disorder. I should have been cherished and protected. Instead, these last few years I've had to harden myself and learn how to keep myself safe in order to survive a world that clearly wanted me dead. Much of that work was done alone and afraid. The entire time I longed for a connection with more than just my cat. The better I did, the worse every friendship seemed to get, until eventually I realized I was surrounded by people who didn't actually care about me. Perhaps much of my resentment towards my biological mother stems from this event triggering this realization. I theorize, however, that my resentment stems from seeing how far I've come and realizing she's not much different from how I imagined that 15-year-old girl was. Despite working so hard and getting so far, none of the people I wanted recognition and love from were capable of giving me what I needed. They seem incapable of giving themselves what they need. I feel deeply for them. I remember when I was there myself. I hope they are able to find their way. I realize that I have been upset that so many people lied to me simply because they lied to themselves. Those same people then lashed out at me because they couldn't handle themselves. If they couldn't be there for themselves, they surely couldn't be there for me. That's why it pains me so badly. I'm grieving a bunch of people I never had the privilege of knowing, who never should have had the privilege of knowing me. I'm struggling to draw firm lines despite my loneliness, and keep out the people who genuinely don't want me. People who can't communicate, who don't know how to apologize, who get overly defensive and immediately become reactive without thought. I deserve friends who lift me up and support me, people who hear me and genuinely love and care about me, people who don't make empty promises. I deserve friends who are actually invested in having a friendship, who value my feelings and can empathize with my struggles and cheer my successes, whom I can do the same for. I found that people like that are difficult to come by, but not impossible, and I found that so much of my family was doing far more harm than they may ever be capable of healing. That's why it kills me to walk away. I know they'll likely never be a person who can be in my life, and I grieve. I grieve because I know my worth. I know what they've lost. I grieve because I won't be around to support them. I grieve because I'm afraid that their inability to love me is a flaw on my part. I grieve because in order to change that ideal, I had to shed the part of me that was taken advantage of by them. I grieve the scared and alone little girl who killed herself when no one was watching. The girl who became me, who longed to fight but didn't have the strength. I grieve and remember who I am, and that I deserved better. And that's it for today's Embracing Vulnerabilities, because that's absolutely all that I wrote, and I don't have any more on that. See you next time. Bye.